So, what does a 1927 trucking company have in common with today's most tech-enabled 3PLs? Well, turns out everything, right? Nearly a century after its founding, Nowhere Inc. is proving that heritage and innovation can drive modern supply chains. Today we have Scott Noer on. He shares how his family business blends trust, technology, and tradition to power brands across the Northeast. Welcome back to Legacy Decoded, where we explore the people and companies reshaping transportation and logistics. I am Calais Poteet, and today's guest is Scott Noer. He leads a family-owned 3PL with almost 100 years of trucking heritage, from regional trucking routes to tech-integrated fulfillment and distribution. Noer Inc. shows how legacy companies can thrive in a modern logistics landscape. Scott, I really want to appreciate you for hopping on with us. Take us back to 1927. How did Nowhere Motor Freight start and evolve in today's Nowhere Inc.?
First of all, thank you for the blessed intro. Trumps us up a good bit there, but we'll dial it back. In the early 20s, or I guess early 20s actually, my great great grandfather uh, basically ran a coal truck for a local place, and then in the late 20s he incorporated, and they asked him to run it further, and he did. Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, to ended up being in Lewistown, Pennsylvania, where we're at still today. Uh, they began humble beginnings with a few stake bodies and package cars, and continued to grow for a local company just by being there.
Mhm.
Um, the early days of brokers weren't a thing, right? There was a lot of commitment to service and to people and to family members in growing the business. Through the 50s, my grandfather ended up splitting with his cousin. One family kept the trucking side, him and my cousins kept the garage side. And they moved to a new terminal and continued to expand. And there's stories and history of fighting quote unquote goons from Hoffa's group, through the time period, being in the Philadelphia and New York City markets where we were, ducking bricks and cleaning windows and tail lights. And, there was plenty of pressure. And then they actually ended up taking some rail members to the Supreme Court. You can look up the Norr Pennington Doctrine. It was basically preventing monopoly, in the 70s and 80s. And they grew to about 400 units nationwide, 12 terminals, 7 states. And then the late 80s brought everybody from around the country and paid everybody a year's salary and said, I don't like Reagan, I don't like deregulation. The bottom seeking market is not where we want to be. They filed bankruptcy. And that was
Mhm.
the end of Nor Motor Freight. But in the 60s, they had a warehousing company that basically was started as an additional service, an offshoot to do cross docking and storage and fulfillment. And that's where I came into play in the early 2000s. Uh, my grandfather passed in '04, and my grandmother bought out cousins that were still part of the business in 2006, and none of us really knew it existed. She offered all the grandkids, hey, who wants to come aboard? I was the only one that was even local. Uh,
Wow.
I said, I'll look at it. My degree's in finance, so here I am, fifth generation, never involved in the industry, never thought I was going to be a trucker. Still don't have my license, the first one in the family, and I catch a lot of, crap for that.
Mhm.
But, here we are 97 years later, two exits, two growth models, and, looking to sort of engage in the tech industry. We opened our brokerage in 15. I grew to 100 units from basically with one truck and 40,000 square feet. I grew us to 100 and 250,000 square feet. And then we exited that in 2015. Uh, 5 years later, after a non-compete, I kept getting requests to grow again, and now we're back up to 20 trucks and 75,000 square feet of warehousing. And a lot of that's been driven the same way it was, 97 years ago. Customer relations, direct, conversations, and being there whenever you're needed. But the tech market in the past 10 years, realistically, I mean, it's been 20 years, but realistically, the changes in the last 10 years, and if not the last 2 years, has really pushed the margins for the industry to the brink of collapse. Post COVID, as you had noted, there was no equipment to be had. Prices were sky high, rates were sky high. And within, 12 months of that, it's collapsed. Um, you've seen over the last 2 years more than 200,000 trucking companies fold. And it's not, I mean, overextension be one thing, overinvestment be another. But you have all these tech-enabled startups that are claiming that they're, using AI and aggregating and automating, and a lot of that has just been fluff to say that margins are worse. There's an oversupply of trucks,
Mm,
and there's not enough freight to go around.
mm.
There we are in 2025, in the worst trucking market that I've seen in 20 years.
Got you. Got you. Okay, cool. I'd love to know what's it like being a fifth generation family leader in logistics? What does a typical day for you look like?
um, for quite some time, I was pretty good. I usually had my dedicated operations, done from a normal 8 to 5. When I grew to 100 trucks, I didn't hire people to support us, and that was my own fault, my own, be it control or OCD or however you want to say. Life was, as a business owner, doesn't exist when you're 9 to 5. Nights, weekends, 15, 18, 20-hour days on the regular. Uh, Vacations didn't exist. So when we exited, obviously it was a nice relief for 5 years, and spending some time with the family and still growing the business for the warehousing side. But the coming back has been a struggle, right? Coming back into the industry and running a family business, you've got many people to serve. And as the quote unquote youngest, my kids are still in high school, uh, you're the lowest on the totem pole and you get paid the least and you work the most. And that's any family business pretty much anywhere you put it across the country.
Mm,
Um, but I thrive in it. And I think I feel that I'm one of few in the industry that still wants to be involved in what your parents were.
mm,
There's a massive amount of family businesses that they're 70s and 80s age group. The that generation is at the point of finally retiring or finally admitting that they should retire or looking to exit. And my generation, late 30s to the early 40s, a lot of us never followed in the footsteps of our family. It was get out, get away, do something different.
mm,
And I couldn't be happier that I have followed in the footsteps of the family, albeit in the worst time that I could possibly try to do. Right.
mm,
So my day to day was pretty good up until about 6 months ago when my ops manager upgraded. Bless him, he got a nice opportunity to move to a company 10 times the size with, 4 or 5 times the amount of money to pay him. I was like, hey, rising tide, man, I'm happy for you, but now I'm back in the thick of it.
mm,
So, I wear 14 hats again, and as I look for that additional coverage or that additional ops manager, that is, I would accept coming aboard. I'm back to working those hours, and I think it's something that family businesses or business owners, period, see a personal liability or a personal need to do that for their business.
Mm,
In a market that's so far down and you wonder where cash flow is going and where every penny that you need to pinch is, uh, being involved in it all and seeing every cent is an insane need from small businesses and small companies, especially with founders or owners or legacy businesses that you don't want to see go away.
mm. Nice, man. Let's talk about AI
Okay.
and tech companies starting. Where do you think AI is best used in trucking and transportation right now?
Oh, so there's a difference, I believe, then of AI that's being utilized with some seriously large quotes around it.
Mm,
Um, there's simply large language models that are, aggregating data and automating your workflow.
mm,
That's great. I think it's a great use of time and energy to put effort into those solutions. Um, where I see it fall flat repeatedly is on the phone calls that you either call in for or you get phone calls from.
mm,
Everybody's asking for an extra dollar. Everybody wants, you see rates out there at 90 cents a mile and you just have to laugh. And when you call in or you talk to somebody to book a load and it ends up being AI, they can't make a decision. So now you
mm,
just wasted 15 minutes of my time trying to get information through to somebody when at the end of the day they have to go ask for permission anyway.
mm,
Well, let me go over to somebody to handle it. That's a waste. There's a distinct opportunity that we're building, I think, on the brokerage side that is truly AI, is not necessarily AI, but is truly automatic and automated. And what ends up happening is that the current brokerage model is ineffective, inefficient, and not really what what carriers want to do. I don't need to spend to book 20 trucks for a week. I don't need to spend 6, 8 hours on the phone. I should be able to click 3 buttons and make it done. That's where the AI or the service model or the automation of things should happen. But post that, there's a ton of track and trace that's not being done properly. I don't need 6 phone calls from 7 reps to say, where's your truck? Like you have it integrated, it should tell you where. I shouldn't get to a warehouse and see that it's 16 trucks behind loading and that I'm going to sit there for 10 hours. Your system should communicate with their system and tell us, hey, don't show up yet. We're going to be late. There should be compensation for that. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, if I don't waste my clock, I can still maybe make your delivery on time. Another thing that is not happening in the industry right now is routing solutions. There are there are some out there, but the problem is that there's not bookable routing solutions. So there's plenty of things that are being created or being thrown together to catch this AI wave, right? And very few of them are actually AI. They're simply, you know, large language models that automate some of the process, but aren't actually artificial intelligence. They're not making decisions for you. They're not making, uh, you know, intelligent offers or options. They're just using data that's input and that's historical data and providing you with an example of said data. Um, so AI in trucking, I can see some interesting things coming through with you know, non-driven vehicles, but I think we're still pretty far away from that. Um, but there are some options that would eliminate 40, 50% of staffing in a brokerage is post sales, but you shouldn't need it. You shouldn't need a carrier relations team to beg for 10 more dollars or to push the price down 10 more dollars. You shouldn't need a track and trace team because it should all be automated. And you shouldn't need a financial team to review everything, because if it's done right through an automated system that's, properly vetted and secured, you don't have to review all of those things. And it seems to be that every single solution that's put out there just ends up costing a carrier more money. Saves the
Hmm.
broker money, but costs a carrier money. But in reality, and people don't understand this at a macro level, like if trucks shut down, our country shuts down. Fresh food is gone in a day, medical supplies in three, a fuel relation, fuel is gone in a week. And without trucks carrying that, and I'm not talking like a pickup truck, I'm not talking a box truck, a sprinter van, I'm talking the big trucks on the road. Without them operating on a daily basis, our country shuts down. I mean, it's imminent failure if 10% of the trucks on the road just decided they weren't going to haul stuff tomorrow. Unbelievable disruption of this country.
Wow, you said a lot there. Um, that's interesting. How has the company balanced honoring tradition with adapting to the needs of modern trucking times right now?
So right now, um, I've pivoted to add our tech and our brokerage to it. We used to be about 75% direct, 25% brokerage.
Mm.
COVID crushed some of our biggest partners, and now that number's flipped. So we're building back. We've lost about 30% margin over the course of 6 months. You get stuck with extra equipment and extra supply, and you're suffering just like everybody else. But the way that we're, I guess, switching the markets is going out and getting some of it ourselves. A lot of places now require you to either be asset-based brokerage or have access to a specific asset base. And we're utilizing that as our, I guess, easy step into the new markets. And I apologize. I think I went off track from your question, but um, as a small trucking company, you're really pigeonholed into expansion. Like I've done this twice, 1 to 20, 1 to 100. There's a clear, like I guess, hinge point for carriers across the country. 87% of trucking companies are less than 5 employees. 97% are less than 2 or 20. I'm sorry. So there's clearly an issue of scaling past that 20.
Mm.
And that's what we're doing. We're building a solution that will help smaller carriers grow into that possibility. Um, because there's a lot of good people out there that run trucks. There's a lot of good humans that want to do a good job. And it's just a matter of putting them together with the right kind of freight and capacity that they can support. When you look across the country, you have pockets of companies our size all over the place. There's, I think, 1.8 million carriers out there. So if you figure 10% of them are between 5 and 20 trucks, you've got 180,000 carriers that have 20 trucks across the country. Um, and they can't scale for whatever reason, be it access to freight or access to tech or the ability to expand their services, because you hit a point that you can't add another person without costing you your business, but you can't not add another person to grow, sort of
Mm.
staff wise.
Mm. And I heard you mention a little bit about, you know, uh, ops. The next person you would be able to kind of trust in that position. What are some good characteristics or something that you're looking for somebody to kind of step into that role?
Sure. Um, you need to have some variety of trucking history, be it an actual trucker
Mm.
or working in a warehouse or in a brokerage. Like ops Ops is not hard, to be honest with you, in a small trucking company. It's just about being able to multitask and manage 1,000 different sources of information all day, between phone calls and customers or agents or carriers, truckers actually calling you and needing help. It is not an expensive role, and it's not it doesn't need to be educated role. It's a experience role. Um, and in fact, like the most successful person that I know personally, right? That like I physically could have called well before he passed. Didn't have a high school education. He just was good with people, and he started from the ground up. Um, he ended up building one company to 300 trucks in the matter of 2 years. And when he left them, he built another company from 40 to 600 trucks in 5 years. So it can be done. And this was in the middle of nowhere too, where like you have no business having a company that size, right? You have one manufacturer that uses 30 of your trucks, but
Mhm.
the other 300 plus, he just he was just that good at it, and he handled everybody until the day he died. If you're good enough with people, he would remember your name. He remembered your wife's name. He'd ask you about your kids and when they're going to school. Right? That's the type of person that can run ops. Yeah, you got to be financially savvy or aware or understand that, but that can be taught. You're given marching orders, right? So
Gotcha. Nice. I'd love to know, what's working well for you guys right now, and kind of, what's been the most frustrating?
the thing that's working for us is our location. Um, I thought it for years. I thought I wanted to get out of here and get away, but we're the dead center of the state. Um, we can deliver to 60% of the country basically in one day. 60% of the population, not of the country, of the population of the country in one day. From upstate New York and Boston and New York down to Richmond, down in Virginia and D.C. and out west to Columbus and Chicago. Like we can be there in a day. Down to Nashville, a little bit more than a day in Nashville. But if you figure that circle from where we're at, be it our warehouse where we've got a couple 100,000 square feet available if I want, to adding trucks to go from you know Canada to South Carolina, like we're in a pretty central space on the Northeast, and that which I always thought was like I hated being 3 hours from Philly or Pittsburgh. If I wanted to do anything cool or go to a concert, I had to go forever. But now it actually helps our business, in my opinion, because I can deliver on one side of the state one day and the next side the other, back and forth. Um, what's not working is the it's more the market, in my opinion. There's
Mm,
still an oversupply of trucks. Post-COVID hangover is a real thing. And
mm,
I don't like to get political, but there's a lot of changes that happened at the federal level that's really impacting our shipping, and our customers.
mm,
Um, we're probably down 25% of what we could be because of that. I haven't added a truck in 3 months.
mm,
Whenever I was growing like two every quarter. And There's a lot of pressure from at the federal level, be it tariffs or just changes in the environment and the current financial environment of a lot of people across the country.
mm. What do, with that being said, what do you think has to absolutely happen for, those changes to, be able to put you back into growth mode?
Oof, boy, I could really go political there, right? No, no, I logistically think that the general population doesn't understand tariffs,
Mm,
or I believe that the way that we are explained tariffs is that they don't we don't we're not explained that they impact us. People believe that other countries are paying these tariffs, but they don't see the impact on the shipping, and they don't see the impact of, warehouses that are moving from California to the East Coast because China's changing shipping patterns from China to the West Coast to through India to the East Coast. Um, that delays the destruction of sort of import export business right now. Uh, but politics or economics aside, and I am not the one to speak about that. I am
mm,
so far uh, out of that loop at a national level. But technology wise, I firmly believe that warehousing systems and integrating with them is not being integrated with them is crushing the industry.
uh,
Multiple times that we show up at a location and they're running 12 hours late for deliveries or
mm,
pickup with no information, be that the broker didn't give us information or the shipper did not, relay that information. Or you show up and there's an incident or an issue and they canceled a dozen appointments, but they don't know how to reschedule them. And the shipper or at the other end can't reschedule them. That's an Amazon issue, by the way. Um, there's severe limitations on the technology side in the warehousing sector. There's 1,001 opportunities out there for brokerages or trucking companies or solutions to fix that, but nobody's addressing the the elephant of I don't have enough staff to unload this truck. I'm now,
mm,
you know, 4 appointments behind, but I have no way to know who's bringing it in. So
mm,
that would be a massive market for somebody to enter that has those connections and capacity to be
mm,
able to walk into somebody like Kroger and say, "Hey, look, we see that your WMS system is, your on-time pickup or your on-time receipt date uh, times are 30% past your committed times. Your late pickups and late deliveries. We track those as a trucking company, right?
mm,
I should, and I will look back and I will see I've been to this shipper 10 times in the past 6 months, consistently 5 hours late. I'm not going. I'm not taking another late load. And that should be public information for brokers and carriers
mm,
alike to have.
mm. Gotcha. And as far as, I guess, from a visibility standpoint, how do we get more people aware of that lingering issue?
Oh, um, well, I think what you're doing is, a great start. Bringing some variety of attention, be it through social media or uh, public forum, is a great start. Um, there's pressure at in the political levels at the federal level. I'm part of a couple groups that are building behind the scenes. The TUID is one, the Transportation Unique Identifier. They're trying to. There's actually a federal push for it, and they're track and trace from a granular level from ship beginning to table essentially. Um, and there's some decentralized networks that are trying to put this sort of a la, sorry, I don't know how old you are, but a la Napster, where each person,
Correct.
each group across the country would hold a certain aspect or certain verified capacity or, you know, piece of the information so that it's not held in one place and that there's more sharing of that information. But everybody wants to be so proprietary and so private with their information, and I get it. I'm all for it because I don't want the government in my phone either, right? But
Mm.
uh, from a shipping and a tracking and a trucking compliance side, you need to be able to share that information because if you don't, the inefficiencies just abound, um, be it at the warehouse level or the transport level, or just on the exceptions level where you have a blowout, you've got a tire out. It's going to be 4 hours delay because you can't get a service truck to you in such and such a time. Like that's the nature of the industry that those exceptions happen. And if there isn't communication or outright sharing of that data, like the system that we're building, if that happens in the middle of the night, which some of my guys like to drive in the middle of the night, it'll alert me. He doesn't have to even call me. It'll alert me. It'll alert a service system. It'll give me an ETA and it'll send a message to our carrier or our broker team and say, hey, we just experienced this. We noticed that the ELD is stopped for X amount of time. He still has this many hours on his clock. He's pausing his clock to get to this. This is the timeline of the service to get there. Like
Mm.
that type of information should be shared, but right now is not.
Mm. Gotcha. This is a very interesting perspective, Scott. I mean, you guys serve, apparel, electronics, cosmetic, food and beverage.
Hmm,
What's actually unique about handling such a diverse, categories?
nothing. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
There's we don't do anything unique.
Hmm.
I mean that's not true. I mean we're vetted by I've been cleared by the FBI, the FDA, the DEA, and the NIH. So as far as if we were going to get into sort of pharmaceuticals again, um, Schedule One products, hazmat products, bonded products, like there's certain levels that you can get into on that end that are unique for warehousing, right? That we could get back into. We used to. Um, but realistically, there's there's nothing unique about warehousing and shipping other than doing it with the right people and doing it the right way. Um, it's a service-based business. It's a service-based organization, and as such, you're responsible for that to your clients.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of people see trucking as a commodity that should be
Hmm.
priced out. And what I say is those are the customers that I don't want. If you're just looking for the dirtiest, cheapest, quickest way to make it happen, I that's not us. What we do is I say to a new customer, I say, give me your hardest lane that you can't cover and the worst places that you hate to go because carriers don't want to go there for whatever reason. And I'll give them a price and I'll give them a rate. And sometimes we'll say, well, that's 15% higher than what we're paying. And I said, okay, but how's your service level? And if they come back and they say, you're right, we've had 10 different carriers in here with this broker over the past week, and we've had, 5 delays here and 5 delays there. And I said, well, give me a shot. And if you didn't have those delays, how much money would you save? And if you didn't have to worry, how much stress would you save? And if I had a guy show up there every day at 8 in the morning with bells on to pick up what you want and take it to New York City, which nobody wants to do, are you going to be happy? Well, yeah, right. That's the difference. If you present your service as a commodity,
Hmm.
as a price point, you end up just taking what's available.
Right.
And that's where the market has gotten to right now. There are so many trucks that are just trying to make their payments because of how bad rates are, that until they start denying or turning down those loads, it's not going to get any better.
I totally agree. Yeah, I think commoditizing your service could definitely have you competing on price a lot of times. Especially if the educational pieces of or just just the day to day of just trying to make sure that bills are covered, right? Might cause a little stress and possible bad decisions. that ultimately
Mhm.
can continue to drive the rest of the market down, right? So I think the
Yeah.
educational piece is always needed. So great insight on that. From a business standpoint, which metrics are you guys most focused on improving right now?
From my standpoint is, since we lost those major clients, right? We are just in the process of filling more direct capacity. Um, I've paused expansion, but I'm also looking at acquisitions.
Mm,
There's a company in Utah that would basically match our westbound with their eastbound, pigtails quite nicely. We're also building the brokerage because we can expand ad nauseum there.
mm,
We can't what you can't do is add excellent service on top of the current equipment and capacity rates.
mm.
So we have, I guess, started to add piecemeal and add additional sort of white glove service, picking and packing, kitting. We build things for people in the warehouse. Um, we deliver, last mile now. We're differentiating ourselves in a different way that I previously didn't have to, right? Because the market was good. But warehousing has turned into a bigger offshoot than it ever was. And the request that I get to fulfill and be that solution provider in the center of the state has just continued to grow. Um, that's really it. We're not doing anything fancy or anything special. We're just saying we're not going to do it for $1.
Mm. Makes sense. And if or what do you see Noah, in the next 6 to 12 months from now? What's kind of like, where do
Well,
you guys kind of want to be?
I'm hoping to complete the acquisition that I've already started.
Mm.
Um, and we're presenting to a couple investors on Friday for our brokerage as well. I fully
Congratulations.
see us at 500,000 square feet and 50 trucks running flatbed and reefer nationwide. Along, you know, the the market out there right now is pretty full of companies that are looking to exit. Um, and I'm more than willing to, be that owner, be that, I guess they call it, sponsor,
Mm.
of an acquisition and help people transition out for their exit. Um, Current targets put us at about 150 trucks and 750,000 square feet in the next 6 months if I can pull it off. Um, but if all of that falls through, we're just building the dedicated routes that we've got from New Jersey to Ohio and back, and from upstate New York to South Carolina. It's a pretty sweet spot here in the middle, and I can get guys home pretty regular. Because as much as we are a trucking company, there's a new generation of drivers coming aboard that don't stay out for a month like their fathers and grandfathers did, right?
Hmm.
And I firmly support that. As someone who I've got a rising senior and two freshmen in high school. I want to be around as much as possible. So um, I can't begrudge them for wanting to get home on the weekends either. But
Absolutely.
I see us growing into an additional 5 to 7 trucks in the next 3 months if these contracts go well, and hopefully an additional 10 over the next 6 to 8.
Gotcha. Love those goals. Is there a certain criteria of, companies on the acquisition side that you're kind of looking that kind of just make the most sense?
Sure, solid history, solid management team, um, owners that are willing to stay around, for a transition period, right? It's not like I just want to, buy and roll out. I like family companies. It's we are one, and if there are ones out there that are in the same boat as us, fourth, fifth generations, those that Maybe the kids don't want to be around because they typically have built a better, relationship status with a lot of their clients.
Hmm.
And obviously, profitability aside, right? We look for asset based with, uh, I would say, at least 1 million in EBITDA.
Hmm.
Um, healthy margins, and niche services. The goal is to have pockets across the country because you can't continue to expand in one place unless that one place is like Chicago or Atlanta, right? You've got places that obviously can support massive companies, but there are plenty of small town Americas across the country that need support, and those pockets, finding them is just, part of the game.
Absolutely. Scott, I mean, your story proves you don't have to choose between heritage and innovation. For anyone listening, a few key takeaways. Logistics excellence comes from reliability and visibility. Integrated technology can empower brands without overhauling their systems. Family owned businesses can compete and even lead in modern logistics. Um, as we come up to a close, Scott, I would love to also know, if you could solve one major challenge today, what would that be?
Ooh, our education system, or do you mean in trucking?
Um,
I'm sorry.
let's touch on both of them.
Yeah. So I don't know how to fix education. My wife's a teacher, and uh, it's a they need more funding. Good Lord, the amount of
Mm.
what they're expected to do for these kids uh, is is perform miracles, with dollars. Um, Not that it should be a federal thing, not that it should be a state thing. I have no idea how to fix it. Um, but the children are our future. Thing is still a real thing in this world. But I would say in the trucking industry, I just think it's the lack of connectivity and communication.
Hmm.
Um, what we're building is a system that is fully transparent on rates and times and information. Uh, it's being integrated forward and backwards with warehouses and shippers and receivers. And the only thing is that it requires you to be transparent with your trucks and with your equipment, because otherwise, I don't know that I can trust you. There's so much fraud going on in this country right now that uh, combating that, if we could just eliminate that process, eliminate that ability, uh, it's a pipe dream, but you know, maybe someday.
Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you for showing us that, you know, a nearly century-old family company can still set the pace for modern supply chains. For our listeners, if your brand is looking for a logistics partner that combines personal service with enterprise-grade tech, definitely check out Noah Inc. Nearly 100 years of proven reliability never goes out of style. And if this episode sparked ideas, please share it with someone in your network. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future conversations with leaders shaping logistics. And until next time, keep it innovative without losing sight of what matters most, which is your people and your customers. Scott, is there anything else you would love to just leave the audience with?
Get involved, be it with local people or local politics or some type of local service organization. There's always something, always somebody that needs help.
100%. Awesome, you guys. Until next time, this is again Calais Poteet with Legacy Decoded. Join us in the Fleet Connect Facebook community. We'd love to have you be a voice and just be a part of the community. Get involved, again, as Scott says. And see you guys on the next conversation.